Okay. Before we do get things rolling, I'm going to thank, even though he can't make it tonight, Lawrence Collins, headmaster of Heathfield. He's currently isolating. We are, as last time, exceedingly grateful for him letting us use the hall tonight. And also Mark Garnier MP, who's been called away to London. Regardless of your politics, please understand Mark has been instrumental in trying to push as hard and as far as he can with this, and he is still fighting for us. So just bear that in mind as we move forward.
You done? Okay. Right, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to run through an agenda. So just to check and orientate myself, how many of you were here last time we did this? Okay, so who wasn't here last time? Okay, alright, cool. So we've got some new people and we've got some people who've been before. Some of the stuff we're going to say is a repeat and a refresh on what we said last time. So I apologise if we bore any of you, but if you can remember that 18 months ago, then you've done really, really well. We did a really good presentation, so we'll have a pat on the back for that. So a bit of a refresh. So our agenda for tonight, why are we here? Like you need telling, I know, but what we wanted to do is just start with a top level summary of why we're here and what this is all about, just to give ourselves that first reminder. Last time we said we want to do things properly, and last time we had a constitution which you all voted on and accepted, and you also elected the committee, etc. And we're going to be going through an AGM tonight because this is a members group and we have approaching 5,000 members. So we need to make sure we do things properly so you guys all get to decide whether we're doing a good job or not. But if you want to vote us off, then we'll be out the door and you can do the presentation, so that's fine. So we're going to be doing things properly as we go as well. Then we'll get into a bit more detail of why we don't want a quarry. And what we're trying to do there is just share with you the main drivers, the main reasons we think that you don't want a quarry, which will hopefully inform those of you who haven't yet objected. Go on, how many people haven't objected? Oh, good turnout, well done. Okay, so at least one of you to write a letter after tonight. So what we want to do is to make sure you're well enough informed for that and allow you to ask any questions as well at the end of the evening so that you've got more information or to come up with ideas, you know, ask us whether there's some things that you think we should be doing that we haven't done as well. Okay, so this is a two-way street. No such thing as a free evening out if this is your idea of an evening out. And then we're going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing about it, and then we're going to talk about what you can do to help as well at the end. Okay, so quite a lot of this now is into technicalities of the planning process. So I just want to go through and explain to you the planning process, where we are, and the little iterative step we've got ourselves into at the moment in terms of making sure that we've ticked all the boxes, or they're trying to make sure they've ticked all the boxes, us trying to point out why they haven't ticked all the boxes, more to the point. Okay, any questions so far? Alright, all good. Yes. So, let's just have a recap about why we're here. So, somebody had the great idea to dig up 3 million tonnes of sand and gravel from an area that we all use for recreation, and decided they do that over a 10-year period, and they then refill it with 100 million tonnes of, at the moment, what they're saying is inert material. Okay, there's 3 types of waste that go into a quarry for refill. There's inert, there's non-toxic, and then there's toxic. And basically, non-toxic is semi-toxic, and toxic is toxic. Okay, so once you get past inert, it's bad news. So, that's what they plan to do. As you all know, it's 111 acres of historic parkland that has been there for a very long time, 1700 and something, since it was instituted by the Knight family. And they're going to do this over a period of 10 years with one final year to refill at the end. And they will be working 6 days a week from 7 AM to 7 PM under the licence that they're applying for. 6 days a week, 7 AM to 7 PM, clank, clank, bang, bang, noises all the time, and lots of sand into the air and blowing over all of our houses. They're claiming that they will create 11 full-time jobs and they'll bring £750,000 worth of revenue to the area. There is not one jot of justification for the £750,000. They have given us no detail on that at all, and we have pushed them, and again they just said, yes it is. And we're going, oh no, it isn't, and it feels like we're at a pantomime rather than a serious planning application. So that's the other bit. One thing that I know a lot of you get excited about is traffic movements. We already have a lot of traffic movements in the area, but this is going to generate another 154 traffic movements, but not just your normal run-around car, big lorry wagons going up and down what are relatively narrow roads, and roads on which our children walk to school. So, the final bit, and we'll go into this in a bit more detail tonight, because we've got a lot of work that we've done on this. And the really good news is, most of you were here last time, no, I can't pronounce that word that's at the end of the slide there at the bottom, because I kept getting it wrong last time. I've been practicing really hard, so I'll have a go. Silicosis. And that is the thing that worries me most about it, and I think from the research and the data we've now got, it's the thing that probably should worry all of you most about it as well. Okay, so that's what's being proposed. Just in case you don't know where it is, because I was talking to somebody about 3 months ago, and they said, oh yeah, it's over in that Lea Castle hospital site, isn't it? It's like, no it isn't. It's really, really close to your back garden. So there it is, and roughly speaking, we're somewhere here, and there is a quarry, oh, sorry, somewhere to the left there, you see an old skull where it says it there, and the quarry is somewhere about 40 or 50 metres, if you're really lucky, in that direction. And if you happen to have children at the nursery at the end of the drive over there, it's probably more like 20 or 30 metres. So this is in the heart of the area in the community between Wolverley and Cookley. Okay? Now we're going to come back and say some more of this stuff again in a little while, but I just thought I'd get you going with that. And finally, if we then zoom out a little bit, and you look at all of the hotspots of where things are, well, firstly we've got Broadwaters, 2,000 people, we've got Wolverley, 2,000 people, we've got Cookley, 2,500 people, we've got 50-odd thousand people in Kimber, which isn't a million miles away. So there's a lot of people. Zion Hill area, again, quite a few people in the Zion Hill area too. So we've got a lot of people really, really close to that, and again we'll be showing you the map of the quarry and a zone of 400 metres and a zone of 800 metres to show you where the sand's going to land. Okay, anybody any doubt about where this is? Okay, there's 5 schools that are on that map, there's 3 residential homes, there's pubs, there's caravan site, there's the lock area where we get a lot of holiday makers coming and staying. So all in all, we've got a whole heap of nonsense going on, and in the words of our MP, this is a really, really dumb idea. Okay, I know you're already convinced anyway, but I just thought I'd make the point. So we are going to, in a second, move on to an AGM, and we're not going to spend hours going through an AGM unless you really, really want to. Do you want to? Didn't think so. So we will do the AGM at record speed, but we want to make sure we've done it right, because we want to be able to, when we talk to the planners, say we've got a constitution, we've had our AGM, we've done everything right, we are the representatives of the people in this area, so that when we make our objections, we can have that with authority stamped across them, because you guys are there supporting that whole process. Before I do that, this is the uncomfortable bit of the evening, declarations of interest. What I would like to know, please, is if there is anybody who is set to gain financially from the quarry. And what I'm trying to do is see whether NRS have sent somebody along to the meeting to see what we're up to. Okay? So very, very clear. So are there any employees of NRS? Are there any family or friends of any employees of NRS? Is there anybody else who works for a consultancy that might be employed by NRS, or in any way could financially gain, or morally gain, or socially gain from being here this evening? Okay. I'm now just going to issue a threat just in case they are here. If you are, we'll sue your arse off you later. Alright? So, if you are, please walk out the door now, because we're serious about this. We don't come to your meeting, so you shouldn't be coming to ours. Okay. I can stop being nasty now.
Yeah, that was far politer than you scripted it earlier, I must say. Right, so the AGM then. Super. For those of you who can't see, I'll just read out the names of everyone's up there. You've got myself as chair, Matt Harty as secretary, Dean Talbot as treasurer. Other members, Right Honourable Mark Garnier MP, Rebecca Hatch, Karen Baldwin, Bill Howell, Tim Partridge, Lawrence McCoo, Mike Lord, Pete Smith, Lisa Jones, Marion McDonald and Andy McDonald. I would just briefly like you to all raise your hands, or not as the case may be, and show your approval for those members to remain in those positions. Do you approve? Okay, we're stuck with it. Thank you very much. Right, so I'm not going to bring it out. New volunteers, members? No, we're okay on that one. Accounts, we have got copies of the accounts here this evening. We've got about 3,500 in the bank account at the moment. We had just under 4,500 this time last year. If you want a copy, please come and see Matt afterwards, and you can have a copy and scrutinise accordingly.
That'd be Dean, not Matt.
Sorry, I thought you said Matt got paid.
Oh, he's got minutes.
Sorry, yes, Matt, we've got the minutes, so you can scrutinise those as well. That's it. And so the joke starts. Okay, we've also got the Constitution. If you want to read through that, if you have no life, you're more than welcome to spend the rest of the day reading that one. Any other business?
AGM done.
It certainly is. Box tick.
Okay.
Okay. You can get past that because I can't read that one. Okay. There's a number of reasons why we don't want the quarry. Not least of all, as Mike said, because of the road situation and the silicosis. The three that I'm going to pick out at the moment, yes, health. Okay, now NRS is saying they're going to put water bowsers in place, have spray systems, etc., etc. The first question I ask is, why is it they have to have hermetically sealed cabs for their operators with HEPA filters, and they've got ridiculously stringent health and safety checks on site for anyone working on the plant? You go a metre outside of that boundary and it doesn't apply. So funnily enough, there's an invisible wall that stops the dust coming out. Now, we've been trying to get a response off DEFRA, who are actually going to be the ones who have to answer to anything outside of the boundary. We've not been able to get a response. Mark Garnier is still pressing them. We've also found errors in the health and safety documentation. Again, Mark is pressing them for a response on that. So it's a watch this space, watch this page on that one. Environmental, similar situation. You've got water courses in the area that, regardless of how stringent an operator is going to claim to be, we don't personally believe, as a campaign group with our research, that you can guarantee you are not going to get a breach of the water table, that you are not going to get permeation into the SSI in Hercote or similar areas. So this is the water course that our animals are drinking, eventually comes to feed us and everyone else. And just to go back to the silicosis for a second, the particulates is so small, and this is tying the research that we found from abroad that Bill, our surveyor, has dug up. The particulates is so small that when it gets into your lungs, it gets into your bloodstream, it is carcinogenic, it causes strokes, heart attacks, brain damage, you name it, it does it. And this is why there are so many heavy legislative measures abroad. And we are pushing again through Mark to get a review of the current laws in this country, because they are woefully short of what is being covered and prevented abroad. Canada, America, Australia, to name but three. Safety. 111 acre site. Now, NRS keeps saying they're going to dig phase one, backfill, etc., etc., and have a rolling fill. You're taking 3 million out, you should put 3 million in to fill the hole. I think there's only 1 million being scheduled to come in so far, so that leaves a great deficit. Now, we all know what kids are like, we've all been there, yes, we were all kids at some point, some of us may have forgotten it, I certainly have. And if you see something that you're not meant to go messing around with, what's the first thing you do? You clamber over the wall, you go and play. And we all know the dangers of quarry sites with water and everything else, not to mention just falling off the edge of a damn brick cliff. And 4 metres, believe me, I've seen someone fall off a ladder, because that's part of my job. That's a far enough drop to cause serious injury, and you're looking at a 4 metre drop at least on site. So the site can't be secured. There's no way that you're going to get fencing all the way around there. It's not going to be policed. Then you look at the HGV situation. I actually saw 2 quarry wagons. I won't say which company it is, but they're big 4-axle vehicles, so 40-ton wagons, come up Castle Road from Cornsall the other day. I don't know how the hell they got into Cookley. but they were trying to get out, and that was entertaining to watch. We've also seen them down by the lock. When you've got a bus or something going the other way, right by the lock, the road is just not capable of holding it, but at the moment there is no legislative measure in place to say that they can't. The only thing that stops the traffic doing anything naughty is they can't turn right out of the site. They come out of the site, they turn left, they go out of the lights on the 449. After that, the world is their oyster. So they can quite happily trundle around the block, turn around, come back up the 4189, go out through Wolverley, down Zion Hill, up past the road, Seattle, wherever they want to go. We all know, as Mike said, what the road network is like. It cannot handle 154 vehicle movements a day of that magnitude. Hagley councillors have been made aware of the situation, and they are now objecting because they've realised, as Bill said when he looked at the transport models, when you narrow down all the choke points on the various routes out of the site, you are effectively bottlenecking everything to go up Birmingham Road, with a few very small exceptions. You could say 99% of the traffic has minimal option other than to go up there because of the size of the vehicles. So Hagley are now less than best pleased. The other thing, these lorries like to turn up at the start of the day, get filled up, clear off. So 7 o'clock the site opens in the morning. What time does everyone go to work? What time is the school run? Etc, etc. We're no longer in lockdown. We've got people who are going to be back on the roads. We reckon 80% of traffic in the next couple of years. And you imagine coming up the brow over the hill from the lights, or coming the other way through the shaded area with the trees from the lock end. And you suddenly got a queue of these damn great wagons perched there, belching out the fumes, and there's no way around it. It doesn't need spelling out what's going to happen. So safety is, in our opinion, minimal.
Can I delve into the health bit and talk about some
of the cases?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just give you an overview of the various areas we're really concerned about. Around the back of the room also you'll see that all of these slides are there, so you can go and have a look in a bit more detail later on if you like as well, especially if you want to have a look at the maps. I want to talk about silicosis a bit more. So one of the reports that we commissioned over the last 9 months or so, and Bill, who's one of our committee members, has done an awful lot of work on this, has looked at what happens to sand particles when they come up out of the site into the atmosphere and which direction that they go in. There are laws in Canada, as an example, that say you can't put a quarry within 1,000 metres of any significant conurbation. Okay? On this map, you can see the quarry site marked in red. Around that is a perimeter at 400 metres, and then another one at 800 metres. And you can see that the vast amount of the conurbations of Wolverley, Cookley and Broadwater, Zion Hill, are caught by that boundary, i.e. within what is an illegal limit in Canada. Okay? So, really, really importantly for us, we're now focusing on this in a big way with the planners to say to Worcester County Council, if you do this, we have told you about it, if somebody later catches silicosis, then watch out because we are coming after you. Okay? That hopefully will make them think really hard about putting the County Council at risk of having approved something which later then becomes a problem for them. So that shows the areas there, and you can see again, we've got schools within those areas, we've got leisure facilities within those areas, we've got nursing homes within those areas, and that is of real concern to us. The next thing we did on the investigation, and this is a pretty long report that Bill has put together with some help from another group who are also objecting to a quarry down in Warwick, who've done a lot of work with some GPs on the effects of silicosis. Another thing we've done is say, okay, where does the prevailing wind come from? Okay, and it's from the southwest. That's that blue arrow, which means that the dust distribution for most of the time is going up to the southwest. How many people live in Wolverley or Broadwaters? Hands up. Wolverley and Broadwaters. Okay, how many live in Cookley? Okay. So I know there's always rivalry between Wolverley and Cookley, but in this case Wolverley win because that's Cookley underneath there. Okay? And guess what? The biggest population centre that close to the quarry is also Cookley as well. So the wind is taking it towards where most people are, which is just scary. And when you're standing in Cookley and you look across and you think, that is really, really very close to the majority of people in Cookley. So there's a report going in. We've already sent it to the County Council, but we sent it outside of a planning consultation window. I'll come back to the technicalities and all this in a little while. Put it outside, so we're going to put it in as part of an objection to a formal planning consultation process this time. Okay, they are aware of it and they have registered it, and they are taking that very seriously. So there's a lot of stuff on the website now that you can have a look at about silicosis. The World Health Organization says that UK dust levels are too high, so already at a base level too high. The particulate count in Kidderminster is already too high, so this is just adding more and more to it. And also, you'll be aware that somebody is planning to build 1,400 houses about 300 metres from this quarry. So whether that's a good idea or a bad idea, I'll leave that to you to decide, but it's certainly not a great idea to put a quarry where you're planning on doing that. Finally, if you work in a quarry and you're outside one of the hermetically sealed cabs that they operate in a quarry, then you will be required to wear all of the following safety equipment. Okay, so if you're an adult and you're working 30 or 40 metres that way, you have to wear all that kit. If you're a child at this school, or one of the other local schools, alright, they've been wearing face masks recently, they don't like it, but they have been. But we're not going to expect them to wear face masks because somebody's put a flipping quarry next door to them, are we? So, that's what one of the 11 workers are going to get. That's not what everybody who's in a local school is going to get. So that, to me, is really scary. But the HSE think that is a requirement. But for us, and for our children, and everybody at local schools, nursing homes, people enjoy themselves on the canal, sitting having a drink at whatever pub it is that falls in that catchment area, they're not going to be protected in the same way. Just wrong.
Okay. Noise pollution is realistically the one that we haven't covered so far now. When we had the last set of documentation driven NRS, I did a bit of digging around. Noise was the remit that was given to me. And there's research in other countries for quarries. There's research in this country for airports and no quarries. The one common denominator between all that kind of research is that people's health, mental health and physical health, is massively impacted by nuisance noise. As we said earlier, we've got nearly 5,000 members of this campaign group, which says to us that the vast majority of people in the area consider the prospect of lorries and diggers clanking and banging around as being a nuisance noise. Now, when we sent our report in, I won't quote chapter and verse now to the British Medical Journal and various other bits and pieces we found, we sent a list of publicly available, officially sourced reports from universities and the like that showed research correlating the impact of nuisance noise. To pick a very easy one to reference to, if you live in an estate, council estate, private estate, doesn't matter, you've got neighbours all around you. After a while, if you're being wound up day in, day out, and you don't get any time to relax, which is what, let's face it, we'll have weekends and holidays for, you start getting niggly with your neighbours. And the harmony of the area starts to fall apart. Then you find antisocial behaviour starts rising. Stress levels start rising. Medication issues increase. And so the vicious circle continues. So the fact that our research in this country doesn't recognise at this point in time that noise from quarries is a nuisance noise. The vast majority of the rest of the world does, which again goes back to our earlier comments that a lot in this country is failing to bring the problem to the fore. Madam.
I lived here all my life. I live on Wyre, and I remember the quarry, and I remember the landfill site that used to be in Worcestershire County Council. build of the ground, I don't know. Whenever there's big heavy lorries going down Wolverley, I can still feel it through the ground in my house, but down as one side hill. Yeah. So you're talking about what is actually quite an unstable geographically, like piece of ground, you're talking about sand and gravel and most of our houses, really. So what I'm wondering is whether you've looked at the seismic impact on the ground. We start shifting up here, is some hills have quite a big drop. I mean,
I don't think we're actually at risk of having a landslip if that's what you're worried about.
Is that eventually once water gets in, when we start affecting, I'm wondering whether you've looked into that as possible.
These are the sort of...
Can I just answer that? Yeah, so we haven't. The reason we haven't is it's not a grounds for objection to a quarry. Believe it or not, it's not a grounds for objection because they don't have to do a geological survey outside the quarry area. So now you've said it, we'll go and find somebody who knows about it and ask them the question. I think you've got it now. It's a bad idea, right? Okay, and the final bit is economic impact. The quarry claim. I'm going to come to you in a sec. Can we just get through just hold the thought if you don't like that, and we will come back to you. Economic impact. Who knows what the economic impact will be on this school, on the local pubs, on the caravan park? Who wants to come and holiday next to a big quarry? It's just not the ideal thing, is it? And this is a tourism area. So, what's the saying? 11 new jobs will be created. What we're not sure is how many jobs will be lost as a result of having the quarry there as well. And I think the economic impact is likely to be negative rather than positive. And we've made that point, and we're going to make it again because we queried their data, and they came back and said, no, we're right, and they didn't give us any more data, so we'll have another go. Okay, so that's the economic impact. Alright, I think everybody in the room, maybe barring one of us, thinks this is a bad idea, and I think we all know the reasons why it's a bad idea. So, what are we doing about it, and what are our main steps over the course of the next little while? Well, we've been doing a social media campaign, which you guys have been helpful with. You've commented on the social Facebook feeds, and you've got involved in that. So we really, really appreciate that, and we really appreciate everybody doing that. The main thing we're doing is a blow-by-blow rejection of all of the data that NRS put on their application. And that's really, really important because the only way of getting the planners to not recommend this to county or the county councillors to not approve it is by telling them all the time what it is, the shortfalls of the report in a technical sense, but also why they're just wrong about the impact statements that they've done and their lack of understanding of our community and our area and the historic landscape that exists there already. So we are doing that, we continue to do that, and in the next few days before the 9th of September, which is a date I will return to before we finish, we are going to put in another block of reports, including the silicosis report, just to point out on what they've done wrong. And there's all sorts of problems with the traffic model that they haven't used, and the traffic model generally around this area. So there's all sorts of challenges about that too. On top of that, we've got collaboration going on, as I mentioned earlier, with a campaign group down in Warwickshire who happen to have a local set of GPs who've been writing reports on silicosis and using data that's already out there from other countries. So that will be getting submitted, as we said. And what we need to do is object at every stage, which is why it's really important. If you've objected, object again. If you can find some different reasons to object, that's even better. But even if you say the same thing, just object again. Because the number of people who object just makes it more of a concern for either the planners to say, yes, this is a good idea, or for the county councillors to vote on something that they know is extremely unpopular, because they get elected, right? So that's good news from our point of view. You get them and make them uncomfortable. And what we're looking for is a show of strength on decision day. So when we know that the county councils are meeting to look at this application, we'll be asking all of you to turn up at County Hall. And we don't want to be a hurling mob throwing bricks and stones and shouting abuse. What we want to do is a nice, peaceful, professional reaction so they know that our presence is being felt. As they're walking into County Hall, they can see that we're there, they can see that we care, and we can have a conversation with them on their way in as to why having a quarry here is not a good idea. So that's the next stage. After objections, that's the next thing we're going to be asking you to do to help us with. I just wanted to run through the technicalities of all this a little bit. And I'm not a planner, I'm not a planning professional. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but apparently I've got the gist of it, so we're going to give it a go. So this is the steps an application has to go through in order to get approved. So there's a pre-application consultation, which you remember was held both in Cookley and in Wolverley, where the Quarry consultants turned up and one of their employees turned up and talked to us all about it. They have to do that, and that's just a step they must go through before they then do a full application. When they put in a full application, it should be done in one document. They shouldn't have 15 different documents. Okay, so we think they're in falling foul of the process by not having submitted what was submitted in one document, which we'll be challenging them on. So they put the full application in. The county council validates that application to make sure they've got everything they should have in an application. Again, we think the shortfall on what they should have put in there, that they haven't put in there, and we're going back and explaining that to them. After the validation by the county council, they publish all the documentation, and that's the period that we're in at the moment. And this is third time around, right? You see my little arrow going back up? Is once we've had the consultation, the county council go away and consider it, they look at the objections, they see whether they think there's more information required and whether there's gaps in the application. So there's a little bit of a dilemma here in terms of tactics. The more often we tell them why our application is insufficient and not complete, the more chance they get to come back and add to it and to make it complete. So the slight challenge for us has been just making a judgment call on how much we push them in terms of providing more information versus just going, do you know what, I think we've done enough, we're going to let the planners decide if they don't have enough application to reject it. So there's a really tight gap there in doing that. So we're using this round to introduce some more stuff that we haven't yet done, which is more making points on factual incorrectness in their statements and more about making the points as to why we think this is a bad idea, rather than pointing out to them the inadequacies of their document. And it's a really fine line to get the balance right, and it's almost a gut feel in terms of, do we point this out or don't we point this out? Or do we wait until afterwards and we point it out to the planners later and see whether the planners will listen to us? And by the way, the planners are really good at having a dialogue with us. So we've had a couple of meetings with them, and they've been, despite COVID and having to do a video conference, they've been really good, they've been really quiet, and listened very carefully to what we've said. And you just get a sense that they might just be on our side, but they're not allowed to be, so who knows? We'll see. Just get a sense. So, optimistic, but I'm an optimistic person by nature, so please don't throw things at me if I'm wrong. Okay, so we're in this cycle going round again. So do I think that they'll go back for a fourth lot of information from NRS in terms of coming back for a fourth consultation? I think there's a real chance that that's going to happen. And that cycle takes anywhere 6 months, 9 months, a year to get through that cycle. So it really does take a long time, because the council will spend 8 weeks looking through it, but then go back to NRS, they'll ask them more questions. They can typically take anywhere between 2 and 5 months to come back. So, because they have to go and do some work. For example, we had a great one which is about dormice. There's dormice lying on the Lea Castle Hospital site. So we decided there might be dormice on our site, and they haven't done a proper dormice study, so we have to do a proper dormice study. And apparently, none of the dormice ate any nuts between September 2020 and December 2020, so that proved that there weren't any dormice on site, which we weren't really sure whether there were or there weren't, to be honest, but there you go. So it's stuff like that. A little bit of nuisance, perhaps a bit more of, causing them to have to spend more money, and maybe eventually they'll have spent enough and they'll give up and go away. That's wishful thinking, right? We're not banking on that as a strategy. So we're in this link where I go round. What happens then is the planners, the civil servants, then make a recommendation to the county councillors, and 28 days later at the next planning meeting, the county councillors get to decide. So the planners would recommend that they reject it, and the county councillors could then approve it. Okay, so they don't have to listen to what the civil servants say. The planners could recommend it, and then the county councillors can reject it. Okay, so it can go all sorts of ways around. The planners can reject it, the county councillors can reject it, and we're going to, fingers crossed, and hopefully that's where we get to. If it is granted, then there is a right to appeal. Okay, but we can't appeal because we think the got the decision wrong. We can only appeal because technically we got the decision wrong. So there has to be a legal reason why they shouldn't have decided how they did. Okay, so that's when we get into getting some help from barristers. We have 2 barristers locally, by the way, who've offered to help us free of charge if we get to that point. We're taking advice off them as we go through. Okay, so it's really important we have people like that on side because barristers are not cheap people. So the fact that some people are giving us advice for free is really, really helpful. And same with people who are in this planning consultancy and people who are geologists and people who are environmentalists. We've had all sorts of help from all sorts of different people. We take the ideas, we put them into a document and then we send them on. Okay. So that's basically the process and that's the stuff that we're doing along the way down the right-hand side. I will take some questions on that because it's really important that everybody locally understands that. Yes.
Is it still the case that if they fail on appeal and challenge it legally and win, the local authority has to pay the cost?
Yeah, so if they decide to appeal, again they have to appeal on grounds of either unfairness, bias or legal technical. So they can't appeal because they think the decision is wrong. We've got to find a reason for the appeal. If they do that and they go to court on that, then and they win, then yes, the county council end up paying their costs. I suspect. I'm not 100%, but I suspect.
Yeah, I think this has led to, because it's a relatively recent legal change, and this has led to local authorities being reluctant to reject on appeal. Okay. Because of legal challenges which they would have to pay the cost.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm not sure that we've got any of the councillors who are saying that they will not do their jobs properly at this point. Now, clearly the county councillors in the planning team are not allowed to talk to us about this. Okay? We can write to them and tell them what we think, which, by the way, we will be doing as soon as the planners have come to a decision. We'll be writing to county councillors and giving them our opinion about that. But I would hope that they don't take that sort of thing into account because they have to uphold the law and follow the legal process. So regardless of whether that ends up in a court case or not, they should follow the legal process.
But that, I mean, that really adds to the importance of your case being absolutely.
Yeah, we need to get the planners to say no, we need to get the county council to say no, and to give them all the ammunition they need to say no. So that's our job, is to give them as much ammunition as we can to make the right decision from our point of view. Yes, Maggie.
If they don't follow the legal process, is that not your reason then?
Yeah.
That gives you a reason to
yes, to appeal against it, yeah, sure. So if they don't follow the legal process, then we can appeal against that. And if we've got some nice friendly barristers who are prepared to do that for us, and that makes that possible, otherwise it gets really, really expensive. However, it appears that the traffic model is broken, and apparently that's why the traffic model has not been used, and we've requested access to the traffic model, which we've been denied. So we are also objecting on the grounds that they haven't used a proper traffic model in order to do what they're meant to do. I'm going to take questions from somebody who hasn't asked one yet, if anybody has a question or a point they'd like to make. Yes, Alex.
We were asked to object kind of March 2020 time. So we've been asked to object again based on this new information from the NRS. The reason why I'm coming here tonight is to find out what the new information is. I'm just wondering if we're going to hear about that.
Yeah, so the thing about what NRS said is it wasn't a lot different to what they'd already said. So what they said was basically, we've done the report, that's what the report said. So for example, on the environmental side of things, there was no negative environmental impacts as far as the report was concerned, and we said there cannot be no environmental impacts of this. So where's your negative survey? What have you done from a negative point of view? Also in terms of landscape, they said there was no negative impacts on landscape. And there can't be no negative impact on landscape. For God's sake, there's 300 million tonnes of stuff coming out and only 100 million tonnes of stuff going back in. So they haven't actually said a lot that's very much different to the first time. All they've done is try to bat away the points that we said without any substance and any additional substance to them. Yes, sir.
Can I just point out, I actually went online and looked at their new information. and I spent half an hour reading it, and I had no idea.
This is...
I couldn't understand it.
If you go back to what we were saying earlier, Mr. Lawrence, this is the same as, you know, folks don't know where to look, and if they do find it, they don't understand it.
It was designed to be difficult.
This is a common issue with, you know, a lot of planning matters, and you know, we're not going to be able to rectify that, unfortunately, in this matter. But, it is, very much a problem.
Fortunately, we're really lucky to have two people who have worked in planning processes all their lives looking at this stuff. So that has made a massive difference. I spent an afternoon, and I maybe got a bit further than you did, but not a lot until I asked my colleagues and said, what are they trying to do here?
Well, I must say, I used that as part of my objection, but I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, and I think that's the point about the process, and the fact they haven't put everything in one document, which is where they've reached the process, which is where we're going after next.
Lady in the striped shirt.
We might not get on to this subject, but what about the valuation of houses?
Unfortunately, that is not a legitimate, well, as far as the system is concerned, that is not a legitimate concern. You cannot use that as an objection. The system, I don't like it, no one else likes it, but if you just complain about that, they'll throw it out. It is not in the...
However, the economic value of homes that are yet to be built isn't relevant. So all of the new homes that are being built across the road, that is relevant, because effectively what could happen is the developers go, well, we're not building homes there because you want bloody road quarry across there, so that is relevant. The challenge with that is we've only got planning applied for or approved on part of that site, not on the next stage of it. So if they'd actually applied for planning permission, we could use that as an argument. But because they haven't applied for planning permission for the next phase, we can't.
How did they get permission for, what is it, 600 houses?
That's another conversation for another time, sir.
Houses on Stairbridge Road? You're being naive.
No, sir. The Cookley Council Action Group actually set up before we started this campaign to look into the Lea Castle planning matter, and I would strongly advise that you speak to them for advice on that front. This campaign was part of that group at one point, but became such a monolithic job to manage it. That's why we came away and we became a separate entity. But there is actually a dedicated campaign group dealing with the housing matter. We can't cross into that boundary because under the legal technicalities it would be irrelevant, and we're trying to focus on what is... Sorry? On Lea Castle, it's got 600 houses already. They're starting on the second phase of the planning campaign. Yeah, but we'll...
Gentlemen in the blue t-shirt.
Yeah, at the back.
Thank you, guys. Could you just draw everyone's attention to the document that we had when we came in? Would, and I'm asking the question, I don't know, and this could be a possibility. Would something like the 30 documents that have been added, and it should have been one, but that was built into the objection document that we're going to be on?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
The scoping report, that's nearly 3 years out of date. Could that also be highlighted?
Any reports or surveys that are data?
Definitely highlight the fact that the data is now old, yes.
Right. Further down the plan, due to the pandemic, the majority of those on the Worcestershire County Council Planning Committee have not even visited the site. According to the government, the pandemic is now sort of in recession. Could we not urge those councils?
We now have agreement that they will attend.
So we're out here, get them to come and have a look.
Done that there now, come and have a look.
There'd be nothing better than having the coastal councils turn up and sit there and try and get out the junction.
Absolutely. Two more points. The conflict between Wyre homes and Homes England, pushing their homes at Lea Castle. Again, surely we could put that in there. That could be another avenue to put into that document.
It is going in.
And the last one, sorry, two more. The duration of the quarry. They can't alter that boundary. That's 10 years they put in there. They're now on 11.
Yeah,
well, there's 10 years extraction, a year restoration, but the problem is if they find more, they can apply for an extension.
Thank you. And one more, the traffic flow. And this is the one that really gets to me. So you come out of there, you cannot turn right into Wolverley, right?
Correct.
It's okay to go left, you go into Cookley, you go to other places. That one's good.
Well, they can go through Wolverley if they go down over the lights, down to Broadwoods and back up, yeah. It's been cited because it would be a safety, to my understanding, safety issue crossing the carriageway. I think that's the dictation. Well, I can't comment on that.
We are going through the whole traffic flows thing, and Bill has done a good piece of work on telling them why they're wrong. In fact, they can't even add up in terms of silica outfall anyway. They're out by a factor of 10 in the calculation. The gentleman in the black t-shirt.
Can we use the traffic flow is going to be further exacerbated by Lea Castle? So the bill on Lea Castle for 10 years, if it gets full planning permission. Can we use the 154 item of that in conjunction with that development, in conjunction with there's a new proposal for housing in Haverley that would come this way?
These are all absolutely. It's not just about congestion that already exists, it's about future congestion that the lorries are going to be back.
And they should look at the overall umbrella impact on the area instead of just in its own right. Yeah. Lady in front, I think you have your hand as well.
I found after them coming out of the site, what happens when they go back into the site?
So they have to come up the hill.
They must turn left, that's down to Wolverhampton Road.
Yeah, so they have to come up the hill and turn right into the site because of the way the curving is arranged.
So coming back,
they'll
have to turn right into the site.
Yes.
So that is good. I mean, it wouldn't matter which way it is.
One of the many discrepancies in the documentation that we've cited.
Yes.
So they're going to turn across traffic?
Yes, correct.
Whatever happens?
Yes.
Lady at the back.
Thank you.
Has any consideration been given to the clean air zones, the congestion?
That was all cited very, very early on in this. This is been listed for compliance.
Extending from there to extend it even more. Because it's a real issue, so surely that should be made of half hour.
It is.
Congestion and the clean air.
It's all been listed.
Particularly Kidderminster is already higher than it's meant to be before you put Quarry on that side. So.
We don't want congestion, we're going to find more for your cars and everything else, but we'll have all these lorries and everything else.
Absolutely.
Ma'am, you want to point to the side there? The issue you've got, it wouldn't stop another operator looking at an applying. What we're trying to do is find a permanent block on the site. Because NRS are actually a small operator in terms of the industry. Again, these are discrepancies that we've highlighted in the landscape report and the landscape impact. So you've got something called the human impact, which this is part of, and the well-being of the community is a very fundamental core part of the policy. Okay. Lady there. I think it's once per phase of not. I think it's once per phase of the.
I think there's a reality check here as well. Is that NRS are not a big company, and to our knowledge, this is the first quarry they've applied for from scratch. So they've taken over some, but they've not. So their background is landfill, not extraction. So the reason they get into extraction is they've got more places to put stuff back in. So they're not a massive company, and at some point there will be an end of their budget to be able to find it. At some point, I guess, but I don't know. Yeah, who knows when that is and how much money they actually have and they're prepared to throw at this. Yes, sir.
As the traffic came coming out on the B road, it's certainly more busy than when I moved in. So, as you talk about different areas and problems. What about local data? As the traffic count being carried out on that B road, it's awfully busy.
My husband and I asked for that to be done across the road more times than I care to.
Yeah, but this is the committee for this. Much stronger.
Have you just let Mike reply to that?
So the highways model that the Highways Agency or Worcester Highways are meant to use, I think Bill, they admitted eventually that it was broken, right?
Yeah, come on. Bill's our surveyor.
Okay, to try and answer this quickly, I'm a chartered surveyor by background and property
developer in Birmingham.
Okay.
So I do a lot of planning applications. From the highways point of view, in terms of traffic counts, there was the Lea Castle Hospital application, which used this Wyre Forest traffic model, did all the counting, and all the information is there, and it's been done in the last 4 or 5 years. And basically, it shows all the junctions around here, particularly going into Kidderminster, being totally overutilised and congested. Right? But they're not doing this with the 154 HGV movements, and because that would just add to the total. But basically the traffic counts are there, all the information is in the files, but on the Lea Castle Hospital, and we've transposed some of that in our objections. What was the other point? Sorry. Dust and noise. The reports that they've submitted on dust and noise, we've analysed as report 11 out of 247 in the data you can access, right? Sits next to the transport information that NRS submitted, which is document 12, right? The dust and noise calculations have been done at a fifth of the real number of traffic movements. So it's all a total lie in the documents. And that's one of the new points that we're bringing up in our objections this time. And finally, the key issue about appeals in the future. Yeah, people can keep changing applications very slightly, or new people come in and make virtually the same application. What we're trying to do after this battle this week, where we need to object this week to stop this application, is that the Worcestershire Minerals Plan is being reconsidered at the moment, right? And what we need to do is to take this area, the Lea Castle Farm area, out of that plan because of all the existing housing around and all the new housing being proposed. And we think we can do that, and that's the next thing we'll be doing, is trying to get the new plan changed so that this area comes out, stays at Greenbelt, and becomes a sort of a barrier to stop Kidderminster encroaching onto Cookley and Wolverley and keep our very special area special and separate. Thank you.
Notice which section's which and he gets a round of applause. Outrageous. What section 3? No, I'm not going there. Okay, any more questions?
The castle development's been mentioned several times. Surely the developers of that site have a great financial interest in what happens on the Quarry site. Are they supporting your campaign in any way?
So we tried. We've spoken to Homes England amongst others. The challenge is getting one set of industrialists to criticise another set of industrialists on the record is not easy. And what they don't want to do is dip into somebody else's argument and then colour the argument that they've got in a negative way. So that's the problem with that is, you would think, wouldn't you? And it was just like common sense that would be the case. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. Commercially, they got it right. It's like, not a chance. We tried.
Dean.
Thank you, Ray. Once again, just, whilst we're putting in our objections, we need to get them in this week. It's got to go in. But also remember, we have local representatives as well. Parish council, district council, county council. Get in touch with your county councillors, your district councillors, your parish council. Tell them how you feel. The majority of us here don't want them in the quarry. We've made that known. We don't want it. Lisa Jones, unfortunately, is gone. You recently mentioned Marcus, what's his name? Garnier. But we don't want it. Tell them we don't want it. And let's all get the county on and tell them they're wrong.
Okay, so that's a really, really good point. So parish council have voted against this. District Council voted against it, and the District Council Planning Officer has given several reasons why. So he's a professional, he said you should vote against this and this is why. So we've got some form there in terms of that. If you're going to write to anybody, write to the county councillors at this point. There's a list on the Worcester County Council website. You can get the people on the planning committee and you can write to them. Okay, in fact, I might put it on Facebook, I'm not sure whether we should have.
Really, county are the ones that are going to count that, the parish have rejected it, district rejected it, county are the deciding level of authority, so they are the ones the book stops with them. Now.
Can I also point out that I know quite a lot of the councillors in this room, it's nothing to do with a particular party. I'm going to base myself here now. There's Labour, Liberal, Green, Conservative, maybe even the such party, they are all, and I repeat, all on our side, everybody. So we're not into slagging off past the back country, slagging off any party whatsoever.
Any more?
By the way, people around here do not come from medieval village. An awful lot of them come from Kidderminster to solicitor or whatever.
No, I come from Kidderminster for my sins. Lady in blue.
Just a question. Answer my objection again. You said we've got to get rid of something like that.
Let's give it that.
Hi. I've done my objection again, and so we have to get them in by the 9th. Does that mean that all of the objections we all made previously don't count at this stage now? We have to do it again.
So technically, any objection that's already been made is carried forwards. Psychologically, we want as much weight of paper, electronic, emails, whatever, to arrive on the planner's desk as is possible, because we want to use emotion on them to get into the fact that this is a big decision, because there's a lot of people written objection, and that is particularly important when it gets to the politicians.
Ladies and gentlemen, last question.
I'm just wondering what the final journey is. If it's rejected at county council level, where does it go then? Does it go to House of Lords?
So it's a legal appeal. So if it gets refused, you can't then go to the Department of Environment and say, we think it should have been done overruling. So if the Department of Environment want to get involved, they have to call it in after the planners have given their judgment before County Council votes on it. So watch this space with that one. We're working on seeing what possibilities are there as well. So from that point of view, that's what has to happen. Otherwise, it's a legal charge. All we're allowed to do is say the County Council did not act in a proper way. So it becomes a legal process at that point, from my understanding. Bill? Yeah? Yes. Bill agrees, so we're alright. You give me another round of applause. I'm not bitter and twisted at all.
The absolute last question is 10 to 8. Madam.
It's just a question, in terms of what you said in terms of house prices, you can't use your arguments on your own house, but the proposed bill to do it. So is there an argument to have about this quarry would prevent the houses being built and council tax income for the council?
Yeah, absolutely.
That means, I've just done a quick calculation, £3 million if the second phase wasn't to go ahead, and that's the 3rd year.
Yeah.
So, have you used that argument as well?
Yes. Yeah. And we will make it again.
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
The problem with something that almost saying, well, all right, it's still in the house, something we don't have to work, and then you end up with loads of houses in the area.
That's the conversation.
Yeah, we're not making that argument.
Ladies and gents, I think it's time to knock it on the head.
Hang on.
Closing comments?
We've got excitement.
Oh, yes.
We've got excitement. So, firstly,
a little treat for everyone.
Firstly, before you go, if you haven't yet done an objection in this particular round, over there on the side there's some envelopes, there's some stamps for the envelopes, there's a format of a letter, there's reasons to object. If you want to do it that old-fashioned way, please help yourself to those on the way out. Please, 9th of September is the deadline. You must do that by Wednesday. Okay, you're going to post it. Do it tomorrow morning. It's a first-class stamp because I wasn't being cheap. So you post it tomorrow, okay? So really, really important you do that.